Greetings, traveler. I am Sir Nox, the teller of tales. Would you like to hear one? This one is called Found Out My Girlfriend Caused a TPK. Uh-oh, that's not good. Still sorta trying to find out how I feel about this, but my gut reaction is pretty negative. If your party got TPK'd Friday night, maybe skip this one. So to set the scene a little, my group has been playing for about a year and a half now with me DMing. However, a few players have been interested in DMing for the first time, and I've been looking forward to getting to play, so we decided to take a break from my campaign and try out one of our players' campaigns. This is his first time DMing, and it's come with the typical hiccups that a new DM always has, but until last night, it was going really well. The relevant cast is just the DM, John. My girlfriend, Sarah, who plays a changeling 5 bard, 1 warlock, and me, who played a grung barbarian. Obligatory not real names disclaimer is obligatory. The session starts where we left off last time, with the party trying to sneak into a town through the catacombs to assassinate one of the BBEG's top minions. Along the way, we accidentally piss off a black pudding and decide to flee as opposed to stay and fight, knowing that we could outrun it. However, we do not outrun it and it manages to stay right on our heels. I figure this is either a slight DM mistake or just a way to increase the tension, and boy does it. After a handful of skill checks, we run into a new room that just happens to have the minions we're after, which is the good news. The bad news would be the Balor he's talking to. Yes, a Balor. Full on, nearly unmodified. John waived the non-magical resistance on account of none of us having magical weapons. CR-19 Balor and a black pudding against 6 level 6 PCs. No wait, actually, Sarah's PC is apparently not in the room, so make that 5 level 6 PCs. Screw it, we ball. To spare you the details, thanks to a combination of John being extremely unaggressive with the creature as well as him rolling fairly poorly, we managed to bring him to the verge of death, with my grung spending most of the battle holding on to his horns, laying in damage. Finally, on the Balor's turn, John targets me and misses, and because the creature was so low already, he let me deflect the blow into the Balor's head, killing it, with most of our PC being under 20 HP. Pretty awesome, right? Those of you who have read the Balor's stat block can probably guess what happened next, but for those of you who haven't, allow me to explain. Oh no. You see, the Balor has an ability called Death Throes, where upon death, each creature within 30 feet of the Balor must make a DC 20 Dex save, 20d6 fire damage on a failed save, and half on a pass. This kills the crab. So yes, one PC was dead outright with the rest of us on saving throws, with a still very much alive black pudding still in the room for some reason. Pretty grim, right? Well, Sarah's character wasn't in the room, and as such was unaffected by the blast, so all she had to do is come in and sweep up the ooze and get the cleric back up within a minute for reviving, and we're golden. But because it's already midnight, and what a cliffhanger, we stopped there for this week, and we'll be picking up next Friday. Now, this is all great and made for a really fun session, but then I talked to Sarah in the car about what she had been doing the whole session while combat was taking place. She got this big smile and told me I had to promise not to metagame if she told me, and since I'm used to knowing everything about the game anyway, I promised. Turns out she was the ooze. Not at first, but while we were running, she turned into it using her changeling powers. Turns out her patron is the BBEG, and as such she's trying to sabotage the party. Which I don't mind, I love that kind of twist, especially when it's in character. But there's a few problems. Firstly, changelings can only change into other humanoids of the same size. Not only are oozes very much not humanoid, but she was also repeatedly referred to as a large creature by John and treated as such in terms of how much area she controlled, as well as how many creatures it could affect and grapple. On top of this, it still did acid damage on contact and did multiple attacks per round. Essentially, she was treated like she had cast polymorph on herself, but she doesn't have that spell, and as I understand it, it only turns people into beasts and doesn't work on shape changes. The whole thing left a bad taste in my mouth, and the more I think about it, the worse I feel. But when I started to express this, she got fairly defensive and said that the DM can do whatever they want and that she was just being creative. But to me, it feels like she's being able to do essentially whatever she wants since she's now a pot device, and it feels unfair to the point of kinda invalidating the game to begin with. I don't know, I'm mostly just venting to get it out since I can't talk to her or anyone else in our group since it had ruined the twist of the campaign, but it just feels very wrong to me. I can understand your frustration, but you did say that you don't mind, essentially, the TPK because of the twist, and if it was in character. So, if you don't mind, then let the game rules be manipulated. Let it be a homebrew rule. Homebrew rules happen all the time, it doesn't ruin the game. I think you might just be bitter that you were surprised and it didn't work out in your favor, which I think would be more understandable if you just admitted that. You were maybe bitter by being caught off guard and losing. That would be more understandable than, oh, the rules aren't being played to perfection, therefore that's why I'm upset. Because homebrew is a thing, and there's plenty of campaigns where rules are changed, and surprises do occur. And if you said you didn't mind, then don't mind. Let it happen. Roll a new character. I know it sucks, but be honest about why you're upset. Unless you are, and I'm just overanalyzing it, but I feel like that's what the situation might actually be. Our next tale is called DM Disfigured and Violated My Character for Seemingly No Reason. Uh-oh. Content warning, sexual assault. I assumed as much. I have been debating whether or not to post this story, but here I am. I will try to get as many details as I can, but this happened a few years ago, so it might be a bit fuzzy. It was a Pathfinder 1st edition game. The party consisted of a dwarf, who we'll call Dwarf, I can't remember his class, but it's not relevant. A human anti-paladin, we'll just call anti-paladin. Myself, an elf magus. My wife, who's one of the players most relevant to the story, a Tengu rogue that was obsessed with shiny thing, that's important later, whom I will call wife because, well, she's my wife. And lastly, the GM's girlfriend, who I think was a catfolk rogue, so we will just call her Rogue. This was the second campaign I had played with this group, with the exception of the anti-paladin, who was first joining on this campaign me. What? The GM and the dwarf go way back and have been friends since middle school. I'm assuming that's supposed to be middle school, but middle school is a funny word, so this is actually probably one of the funniest typos I've ever seen. Since middle school. This is the worst horror story involving this group, but definitely not the last. I have enough for a couple more posts. Anyways, we were all gathered around waiting to start, and I was talking to Dwarf about how excited I was to play the Magus, thinking of all the interesting high damage combos I could do with his spell combat. This is important later. Dwarf then warned me that his character was racist to dwarves. I didn't think anything of it because I knew he was a good player and would do it in an interesting and appropriate way. Then we start. We describe our characters. We are starting off in a tavern, and almost right away the first red flag shows up. The dwarf player then states he's going to walk past me and give me a light shove saying, "Out of the way, elf," or something to that nature. This wouldn't be an issue if the GM didn't take this opportunity to make the dwarf roll for it for some reason. The dwarf then rolled a nat 20, causing the GM to decide that the dwarf's little harmless shove suddenly put me through the wall. He then made me roll to see if I was knocked out. Of course I failed. Then the anti-paladin saw me and stole my money, which the GM allowed. I struggled, of course, throughout the rest of the session because I had no money. I don't really care too much about player-on-player stuff if it's authentic to what the player's character would do, and if it makes sense. Not the toxic, "it's what my character would do" excuse for bad behavior, but an actual honest attempt at what their character would do. In another session, my wife is very distracted by my shiny chain shirt and attempts to take it, and fails. I jokingly call her a woodpecker. This apparently offends my wife's character, so she told the GM that she hired some thugs to beat me up. I don't really agree with this behavior, but it could have been an interesting side quest or something. If the GM didn't instead decide to take things way too far. We were at the tavern later that night, and I can't remember why, but I somehow learned out of game that the GM was going to make me drink a spiked drink. He tried to get me to drink it, and I explained that my intelligence-based magus wouldn't drink or do anything else that would alter his state of mind like that, and he accused me of metagaming. Yes, that is metagaming. I wasn't, but there was hardly any chance. You were. You're acting on knowledge that your character shouldn't have. Now, just because your intelligence is high doesn't necessarily mean you would have known your drink was spiked. But you knew your drink was spiked because you learned about it and you were acting on that information, even though your character would know. That is metagaming, but okay. You say you weren't metagaming, and there wasn't any chance for you to roleplay to showcase that, so you were screwed. Okay. I drank it, and of course I started to be affected, but because of the earlier hijinks, I had no room to go to, and the dwarf hated me, so he wouldn't let me sleep in his room, and everyone else just said no. I had no choice but to go outside. I was of course attacked and kidnapped. I was already annoyed at this, but it got much worse. The GM decided to bring in a character from his previous campaign, which in itself made no sense. But this character had a thing for elves, and that's where it goes very downhill. He has his character assault me in the butt and cut off my ear. Okay, that's weird. That's definitely too far, for sure. Maybe cut an ear off, but the assault, it just never needs to happen, really. I managed my way back and tried my best to roleplay through it. The rogue for once decided to be nice to me and made me a hat to cover up my missing ear and look more normal. Not even 5 minutes later, she chimes in with, "I decided that that's not what my character would do, so I take your hat back." The GM then says that she put something shiny on the hat so my wife would steal it. My wife never agreed to this, but it happened anyway. At this point, I've had enough, and I ask to talk to the GM privately, and we go to another room. I basically ask him why he was treating me this way. His response was that he viewed my excitement for my character in the beginning as being cocky, and I apparently needed to be knocked down a peg. Oh man. I demanded the opportunity to get revenge for my character, and he agreed. I got what I wanted and got the chance to fight him, only he made the character a way higher level than me. Of course, I failed a ton of rules and he ended up killing me. The game ended shortly after that, and the anti-paladin ended up running the next campaign, which is a whole story. If you guys want it, I can post that too. I would definitely be interested in hearing it, but honestly, you should just stop playing with this group. I mean, it sounds like a horrible group, honestly. It does. I mean, it's just, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, you do your thing. I mean, maybe they're longtime friends. Maybe, you have a wife that's involved. I mean, it's probably complicated. It might be more complicated than just simply leaving, just like a random Discord group. But it sounds like it's a lot of chemistry is just not mixing. It's very incompatible. I don't know. It just doesn't sound like a very healthy environment. Personally, that's my take on it. But you do you. Hopefully things get better. And yes, if you have more stories, obviously we'd love to hear them. But hopefully things get better, I guess. I don't know. I have very little hope, but hopefully we'll see. Anyways, that concludes our tales for today. If you'd like to hear more, come back and I shall tell you some.